Hey, what's going on, everybody? Julie Murphy here, and I have spent the last 25 plus years as a financial planner. And you might wonder, why are we talking about relationships then? Well, because we work things out and we act it out through our money, through our health, and our relationships. And I have learned over the years that what we do is we actually teeter-totter. So when we get our money stuff together, then our relationship stuff get wonky, then our health gets wonky. And so we are here, Rita and I are here to help you get through the relationship piece. And don't forget to hit that subscribe button, like, and notification bell so you know every time we're doing this. Because we want to get you to a life that you love. Rita, here we go again,
Hi.
girl.
I know. I love seeing you every week. This is exciting. You know, mental health is becoming a really big topic these days.
Huge topic.
Huge. In fact, I'm starting to look at my practice and think, you know what? I really need to be a spokesperson for mental health because as more stress gets piled on, as fewer people can handle it, as they get the end of their breaking point, more
Right.
people are going to be ready to step into a new version of themselves.
So true. So true. Because and I just want that it's also okay that if you feel like you're crazy and you're not necessarily mentally ill.
Oh,
Because
I can't even tell you how crazy I felt for the majority of my life. And I hid
right.
it from everybody. I hid it from
Yeah.
everybody. I'd
Because
wake
you just
up,
had
I'd
to have
feel
your shit
nauseous.
together to get to the next place.
Yeah, exactly. I would wake up
Right.
every morning and I would, my whole everything would flush out of me.
Mhm.
I'd vomit every morning. I
Oh.
would, and I'd hide it even from my husband. And I'd wake up and I'd spend hours and hours every morning feeling horrible, not being able to get anything done. And it's because I was stuck.
Right.
It's because I didn't know how to get out of the place that I was. And I was too scared to tell anybody that I wasn't as cool or interesting or together or functional as I
Yeah.
was pretending to be.
Right.
And it was only when I started to get past the self-help books and the you need to just be more compassionate and more of
Right.
a male way of thinking, more of a
Right.
masculine energy way of thinking. And I started to go into the feminine and I started to
Mhm.
nurture myself
Right.
and I started to care about myself. And when
Well, and
that happened, I got unstuck.
I yeah, and I think the other thing is I think what makes us feel like we're almost nutso in our minds is the fact that we've been channeling everything all these years through our mind, and now we're being called to channel it through our hearts. And so your mind can't understand this. Your mind is sitting here going, "Oh, but," and it's we're stuck. We're in this place where it's like, okay, this is foreign. I don't really know how to do this, and I really don't know how to get to the other side, let alone like financially. I have people go, well, I can't make any changes in that because I don't know how to financially move. Because and then we get into the 3D world, the practicality of reality of living, and then they just lock themselves up and don't do anything, and we're like a bunch of ostriches that are sticking our head in the sand.
Oh, yeah. And you end up in these toxic relationships, married for 30, 40 years. You gave up
Yeah.
10 years ago when you unplugged, and you just you just kept slugging it out and working
Right.
along. How long were you married?
15 years.
Yeah. Yeah.
Yeah.
We will put, and how early in the marriage did you know that it wasn't a good idea?
It was so funny that is actually one of the questions that one of my first healers asked me. Say, when did you know that maybe you made a mistake going into this marriage? And I knew exactly the day it was. And it was within the first year of marriage. And it was the fact that I was like, this is not showing up the way that I thought things were. And now what do I do? And it was like, wow, I was seeing a different part of my relationship that did not resonate with me. But then that's when all the work started, right? Because it was a trauma meeting a trauma. And then I was like, okay, now what? And And not knowing any different, right? No one in our family, I'm like, oh, well, maybe this is what marriage is. Maybe this is how it goes. And maybe this
My
is.
parents didn't do that. Yeah, my parents didn't play dirty and pull the rug out
Mhm.
from underneath me all the time and call
Right.
me names and shame me. And I mean, they just shut down and got sick.
Right? Like that is, oh my God, you just described my parents. Right. But that's what that generation did, is that they literally physiologically killed each other over time, like literally, because
Yeah.
when we don't work out our stuff, and we've talked about this before, that it physiologically gets stuck in your body. And Dr. Bruce Lipton talks all about that. He's a biologist. If you guys have not read his work, the biology of belief is phenomenal. you know and because he really talks about physiologically how that actually happens in our physical bodies.
When here's a good example. A lot of times in relationships, people will start losing their hearing, but only
Hmm.
for certain tones and certain voices. Because when you keep tuning out the same voice, when you keep ignoring it, you eventually aren't able to hear it
That's
anymore.
like the old person's joke. Like, oh, well, today, I even heard my mom say that, and she goes, oops, my hearing aids aren't working, so it's been a little peaceful. And it's like, Mom.
Oh,
And
yeah.
she,
Yeah.
but I've heard that often. It's like once the man retires and they're both in the same house, and it's like, oh, because they're having to work on stuff that they haven't worked on in years, right? It's
And that was
all coming to the
true,
surface.
when people stayed in the same job for, right, when people stayed in the same job for 30, 40 years and retired from it,
Right,
everybody just did their thing. The kids went to college, the couple ignored each other, and then somebody retired and now they're home
right.
all the time and bored and they don't have anything to do. But that's changed now, hasn't it?
Oh,
People
yeah.
don't stay with the same job. They don't
Right.
stay with the
No,
same career. And so
no.
now everything's up in the air. It's like it all got blown up and nobody's got the skills to handle each other
Well,
because they can't ignore each other anymore.
it's the first time that we're actually saying, like, women, for starters, financially, are starting to say, hey, I can do this and I can create some cash. Like, they're not so dependent on the male patriarch actually, creating all the cash. Like, that's not necessarily the case any longer. Right. And so we're building the muscles to a higher level of consciousness, not only owning our greatness in how we handle money, but also in our relationships. And then our health will be better and we'll have more longevity because of that, whether you're male or female.
Oh, yeah, absolutely. People are redefining roles and not getting stuck in these toxic relationships anymore because they don't have to. How many women stayed in abusive, emotionally abusive, physically abusive, sexually abusive relationships for decades in the
Right.
past? There was no support. They thought it was all their fault, that there was nothing they could do. They were helpless, you know?
My grandmother said that to me. I said, Grandma, why did you get married at 29 years old? Because that was like, she was an old maid by that point. Right.
Good for her.
And she said, oh, I was never getting married. And I was like, Grandma, you got married and you had 9 children. I'm like, what do you mean? I was like, you are never getting married. I'm like, I'm a little confused. I was in my 20s when I asked her this. And she said, oh, yeah, I had exactly what you described. She goes, well, my one friend got married and he was an alcoholic and beat her. And then my other friend, she stayed home and her husband went out and was out with all these other ladies. And so I didn't want any part of either one of those scenarios. And if that's what marriage meant, there was no way I was doing that. And I go, well, then what happened? She goes, well, then I met your grandfather and I liked hanging out with him. And then he went to war and I missed him and he made me laugh. And I was like, oh, I'm like, okay. But it was like she had in her mind all in her 20s that she had friends that went into exactly the relationships that you're talking about. And she was not going to do that. She was not going to do that. And so, like, it's funny, my mom's whole side of the family is like, there was no alcohol in their house. Like, it was like she had my grandmother held the boundaries, like, yeah, if you're going to marry me, you are giving up alcohol because I will never be in a household that you drink. And so there was never alcohol in my grandma's house, ever.
And I
And
think of strong women in my past. You know, we all feel that we're stuck and helpless and alone, but then I start thinking about my grandmother, you know, and how her husband died when my mom was 17 and she had to run the farm herself and have like 3 kids. And I mean, you hear about these stories of these
unbelievable.
amazing women. You know, my mom's like,
Mhm.
oh, yeah, we were really poor. You know, we didn't know it. We lived on a farm. We were poor. We all lived in one room during the winter. And,
Right.
you know, my brother's bedroom was in the hallway. And, you know, we sit there and we think that we came from all these women who were dominated and beaten down. But in reality, we have to find these nuggets of
Mhm.
feminism, of strength, of self-actualization to know
Right.
that we come from a very long line of survivors who
Right.
have the ability to make a better life for themselves. So instead of thinking that we're recreating the same patterns from the past, we're actually the newest technology of our family. We're the latest
Well,
version of our family.
because when I sit here and go, yes, we have all these women who are survivors in our past. But here's the thing. Being the more evolved version, we need to be the thrivers. So it's about not just
Yes.
surviving, because what I notice
Yes.
on a money pattern perspective is that what happens with people is that we have these survival mechanisms, and then that's a more of a fear-based model, right? And it's not something that expands you and opens you up to abundance. You know, you operate with survival and scarcity versus abundance and thriving. And so how do we walk across that bridge? Well, you know, it's like today's topic is that you just got to choose to get unstuck. And
But
choosing
that's
that is just
really hard, you know,
I think it's really
not to
hard
interrupt
by
you, which I do all
yourself.
the time.
No, we both do it to each other, hun. Let's be real. No, no, but it to me it's about that I think getting unstuck. People will say to me, Julie, why do you have so many coaches? You got this one for the business, this one for you personally. You were mine for my relationship stuff, right? And I go, well, when I don't have the tools already in place myself to thrive, I need to work with a coach or someone to get me aligned with that thriving, to call me on my stuff. You know, I remember you saying to me, going, Jewel, no, no, no. You're going to attract the exact same kind of a person, but you're going to show up differently. So the whole thing's going to show up differently. And that couldn't be further than the truth. So when you start to choose to unstick yourself and start to go, okay, I just know it may just be that you know you want something different and you don't exactly know what that different is because you've, not been aligned with your own knowing for a long time. You've not filtered it through your own heart. Sometimes you just don't know. You just know that your body's going, can't do that. Need to do this. And that might be all that you need to know at that point, and then get the people that can lift you up while you're building your muscles, right? I know that's what I've
Yes.
done through the years because, I grew up one of 12 children and I grew up, I mean, we had a Catholic priest that went rampant in a, a too many family members, right? And where that systemically went. And it's like, oh, well, interesting. And so there's so much healing happening and it's like, but how do we thrive out of that? How do we, you know, um you choose to
What
get unstuck because you're shining the light on the dark. I keep bringing this up lately because it's like you just the biggest part I think, and Rita, certainly correct me if I'm wrong if this is what you're not seeing. The only way to the other side is through it. You can't ignore the feelings anymore. You can't ignore the pain in your body anymore. You have to feel the feelings that's creating the pain in the body. You have to work through the stuff that you have chose not to work through yet. And it's the only way to the other side. The
but
only way.
people don't know, you know, in the past, mental health didn't know, psychologists didn't know. Nobody really could help you much except you show up every week and you talk to a therapist about what's on your mind.
Right.
And you didn't get unstuck. That's because
Right.
they've discovered in the last 10 to 15 years that it's in your body. That if
Mm-hmm.
you want to change how you think, if you want to change how you feel, you have to go back to your body and give it a good experience. I mean, like this morning, I've spent the majority of my life waking up in the morning feeling contracted, tense, locked
Mm.
down, tight, and then have to take a couple hours every day to work through it, to let it go
Right,
or to
right,
pretend it didn't exist. But when
right.
I discovered that when I actually addressed how I felt, not like out
Yep,
there, not like blah, 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 but when I said, wow, my diaphragm's really uncomfortable.
yep.
I wonder what would make my body feel better right now. Should I
Mm.
do some deep breathing exercises? Should I take a warm shower? Should I smell some oils? Instead, what we do is we go, God, I feel uncomfortable. And then we start to go find anything else we can find to ignore the fact that we are uncomfortable. And if you spend enough time feeling uncomfortable, it becomes a personality trait. Like
Right.
everybody just thinks that you're hypersensitive and high strung. When in reality, you're not. You're just trying to hide the fact that you're uncomfortable and everybody sees you as crazy or high strung, which is why we have to hide many times. And we don't ask for help because if we show people how we feel, many people will attack us or give us good, well
That's
meaning
true.
advice, or
Right.
tell us we're wrong, or ask us what we did to cause this, how it's your fault. And you're like, it wasn't my fault that I
Well,
was abused as a kid.
well, I gotta tell you, you have hammered this into my head over the last few years. That what I've realized is that you can't necessarily even see that that is happening when people are approaching you or saying these things to you, unless your nervous system is not hijacked. Right? You have
Right.
hit that home to me, and I remember Deepak Chopra saying to me, "Well, you need to just be the observer of it." And I'm like, how in the hell? Because I want to like block and tackle and pull this
That's
on.
why I hate masculine healing stuff because it's just like you
Well,
just need
just
to
do
dot
it.
dot dot. Just do it. You're like, you know what? You can F off. Thank you very much. If you can't tell me how to do this, then get away from me.
It's
That's
right.
exactly how I felt for so long.
Mhm. Right. And what I've come to realize is that when you work on your own nervous system creating space, and you share with people what those are quickly, because I think it's a good reminder.
Oh, how to get centered again?
Yeah, like you talked about, like you wake up and you do some breathing, or
Oh
you,
yeah,
like,
yeah, 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 yeah.
yeah, like
What
what
are
other
some
things
tools?
create space in your nervous system for people? Easy tools.
Um, Go into your kitchen and open up the cabinet and pick a spice you love and smell it.
Oh, that's an easy one.
That's super easy.
Yeah,
Take
right?
your hand and put it wherever it hurts.
Oh, yeah. Healing
Um,
hand.
let's see, what else? Uh, Take the tips of your fingers and press and hold wherever it hurts.
Ah, I do that. It's so funny. I do that at the base of my neck all the time.
Touch your face, touch your arms, touch
Hmm.
your legs. Because
So it's
when
about
you're,
almost getting in your body.
yep. So when
Mm.
I'm most stressed out and I am very uncomfortable, I
Hmm.
start saying things to myself like, I can feel my butt on the couch that I'm sitting in. And then I say, I can feel my sweater on my skin. Or I'm in the middle of a video with Julie.
Right.
It's about getting present because we get in our head and we make up these stories and we're 10 years down the road or we're 10 years in the past and we have to do something that says, no, I'm right here, right now. I'm not the child. I'm not the weak woman.
Right.
I'm breathing. Feel
Right.
my lungs get bigger. Feel my lungs get smaller.
Right.
Those
Right.
are the
That's true.
fastest
Well,
ways.
and what I've started to see, that when you create this space, and Rita, I put your meditation challenge here because this is another way you can create space in having joining Rita in her meditation challenge. So you can certainly just go to ritahickman.com and the /5 day meditation challenge to help you create some of the space to get unstuck, because what I have learned as I have come to be unstuck is that I now can see when somebody verbally says something to me that I would have normally have taken on like something I needed to fix inside of myself. I'm going, did you just say, are you blaming me for you like just going ape shit on that person over there? And I was like, I just want to be clear, like you're blaming me because I wait. Wait.
That's one of my favorite ways to stop an argument because most people, when they're fighting, they're unconscious. They're just
Oh, right. But
spewing
if you have space
whatever,
in right. When
they're
you
not
have
present.
when you have space in your nervous system, you don't plug into the fight because you're not in your trauma because you have enough emotional space. I had somebody the other day when I was just going, yeah, as you can see, I'm super calm right now. I'm not those things that are coming out of your mouth. I am holding this space and I'm not really sure why you're responding the way you are because that's actually not what I'm actually doing. And it's very interesting when not only did I experience it myself, but I watch this between clients all the time. I mean, couples provoke the shit out of each other. It's fascinating. Siblings will do the same thing, right? Relationships with siblings, because we've called these people into our lives to provoke us so that we can move the stuff that we need to move.
Yes, exactly. We keep creating the same patterns because there's something we haven't figured out yet. And the
Hmm.
faster you take time to calm yourself down, let go of things, the faster
Right.
your relationship will move forward. And then your health will move forward, your money will move forward, everything will move forward. And so it
Right.
could be a financial crisis that makes you say, I got to do something different. Or it
Right.
could be a divorce that makes you say, I got to do something different. Or your partner coming to you and say, you know what, we should really go into counseling. And you're like, I checked out 10 years ago. I don't know what your problem is.
So
But
you have to just decide that, like, if they're on a different timetable of awareness, are you willing to wait for them, or are you
yes,
really just done?
yeah, yep. I always ask women, the
Right?
first
Because
question I
either
ask them
or is the
is,
right thing.
yeah, I ask them, is this the person that you are willing to go through this with? Are they
Right.
worth it? Do you get enough out of the relationship that you are willing to stand up for yourself, to do what you need to do? Are they the
Right.
person you want to do this with? Or do you want to find somebody who's gentler or easier? If you
Well,
don't
and
get enough benefit, let them go and move on.
but you may also not get gentler and easier.
Well, I like people who, I have preferences for how I like people to handle their stress. Some ways are more difficult for me. Like if you're going to
Right?
call me names and, and threaten me and threaten the people I
Well, I
love,
guess that's not so
what's the
gentle.
problem? Yeah.
Well, because I also know that you can somewhat you can choose to call in even a rougher person to do your work with.
Oh yeah,
It doesn't necessarily
because you
mean that
think
you're
you're
with
too
the rough
strong.
one.
Yep.
Yeah.
It's women are so strong. I mainly work with women. We know that. But women are so strong that it's like a challenge to them. Like I can do this.
Well, this is
I
why
can put
most
up
of
with
your
it.
clients are A-type successful women because they do it big in business and they also do it big in their relationships. Like I
Oh
had
yeah.
somebody say to me along the way, Jewel, are you surprised that it was as big of a blow up when you got divorced? Because you don't do anything small.
Right,
I was like,
exactly.
oh, yeah, good point. Good point.
So if you think you're so strong and you're just going to drop that guy and not do any of your own work and, then you're going to attract something worse that makes it harder for you
Right, right.
until you give up and say, I need to love myself first and
Yeah,
stop making everybody else the bully. I had a mentor once, and she says, when you allow yourself to be victimized, you turn a good person into a bully. And nobody really wants to be a bully. What we want to do is pull the good person out of somebody.
right.
We
That's true.
don't want to keep reinforcing the patterns of, I'll be a victim, I'll be a victim. Oh, yeah, okay. I'll keep hitting you until you didn't say stop. I had a
Right.
350-pound mentor, and one time I was sitting next to him at this big, long dining room table. He was Ojibwe, lived in Upper Michigan. People from all over the world would come visit him, and it was a quiet time, and I was sitting next to him, and he starts hitting me in the arm,
Right.
and I said, "Why are you hitting me?" And he says, "Because you haven't told me to stop." Now, I never understood that mindset of people, that there's a lot of people that are
It's
waiting for you to
boundary.
tell them to stop
Right.
in a
It's
voice
boundary
that they
holding, right?
listen.
Mm.
Yes,
Yeah.
yes. If you
Yeah.
keep putting up with it, then they're going to keep doing it. And it doesn't make them a bad person. It just makes you stupid for not defending yourself.
And we often want to blame the other person, but if we show up different in the world, that's when permanent change happens. And
Right.
it's like I always thought, and I for some reason this has been coming up a lot lately, and I keep telling people, like, in my emotion behind money book, this is my workbook, but inside the heart it says building wealth from the inside out. And the reason is because you have to shift your inside so that the outside shows up differently. So if you're
Yes.
inside, showing up in a place of scarcity, I just had this conversation with somebody the other day where, they had said something. I was like, and I go, no, 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 that's not what we want to create. So, that's scarcity. It's not abundant. And boy, did I meet the lion. It was like, wow. And I was like, I'm just don't shoot the messenger. I'm just trying to point out that you want to manifest your abundance, and the words coming out of your mouth are creating your lack of financial abundance.
Right.
And like, and sometimes you're ready for the message, and sometimes you're not. But it's all okay. Like, there, it's about the fact that if whoever you're interfacing with, whether it's relationships at work or relationships, at home or family, personal, I find that the patterns show up in all the areas. It's not just in your personal dating or marriage.
Yeah. If you
It's
don't know
not.
how to handle, if you don't know how to handle your stress, then you can't handle it anywhere. You can't
Right.
handle it with your kids' school. You can't handle it with your ex. You can't handle it with, your infant. You can't handle it with
Right.
your grandparent.
Right.
You can't handle it at work. You cannot
Right.
handle stress. And if you don't know your own stress in a productive way and direct it towards what you want, then you're just going to keep eating yourself up and destroying yourself. Good stress is stress you're okay with.
Mm-hmm.
Bad stress is stress that you're locked down, you feel helpless, stupid, worthless, there's nothing you can do, your body's crunched in. That's bad
Right.
stress.
Right.
And as soon as you
Exactly.
say, "Oh, I'm going to put my hand on my heart, I'm going to get back into my body, I'm going to
Mm.
breathe." I don't listen to many of my clients' stories, actually. I listen to them when they're in their heart with them. But if they're just telling me the same bad day that they had,
Up in their monkey mind in their head. Yeah.
I give
Forget
them
it.
like 30. I give them like 30 seconds, and then I say,
Wow.
"Okay, you need to pause for a second, and now we're going to do our TAT points." I make people stop and get into their body because it's a waste of their time. It's a waste of my time if they're going to go on and on and on about the same sad story that they're not willing to do anything about.
Yeah.
When in reality, the smartest thing is to stop, smell
Yeah.
some rose
So
oil,
true.
pet your arms,
So
have a
true.
mint. And when you get back into yourself, oh yeah, mints are great. When you get back into yourself, then you're like, oh, it went away.
Yeah, that's
It
so
took care
true.
of itself.
Well, and one of the things that you saying that just reminded me of is that we really do have to be mindful of whatever vibration we're putting out there, because it's whatever you're thinking, whatever you're speaking, and whatever you're feeling that creates your reality. Whether
Yes.
it's financially or in your relationships, it doesn't matter. Even your health, if you keep saying, "Oh, I'm getting old, my body's falling apart," guess what? Your body's going to fall apart because you keep talking about your body falling apart. Because
Right.
that's your
Well, not
self-talk.
only that, your thoughts are reflecting how you feel. So if you're saying these things, that's your cue that you're dysregulated and you need to go for a walk or talk to a tree.
Right. Right.
That's your
That's so true.
cue when you hear it. When I swear in my head, if I'm in my head and I go, whatever, that blah, blah, blah. If I use a swear word, I know that I'm dysregulated and it's time to breathe. And it's time
Yeah.
to go outside and bare feet and get myself back into a good space. So
Right.
we all have to look for our own cues. And negative talk is one of our cues. If we catch ourselves bitching about something again and complaining about something again, that needs to be our cue. Oh, maybe I should have a piece of chocolate.
Ah.
Maybe I should
Well,
enjoy
whatever
my
that
life.
is. Well, it's kind of like
Whatever it is.
I realize, you talk all about, in our bodies and things of that nature. I am consistently intrigued by, I realized, oh, so how do you raise your vibration? You raise your vibration by addressing not only your mental self, your emotional self, your physical self, and your spiritual self, right? And you have to do all four of those pillars and look at yourself. And I was like, how are you raising your vibration to bring in more of what your heart desires? And I had a big aha even yesterday in my physical body going, oh, wow. When it starts to expand and grow, for some reason, I feel unsafe. And then all of a sudden, I start eating like crap.
Yep, that's your cue.
I was like, oh, this is really interesting because I've had some really huge expansion this week. And lots of
Mhm.
things are happening. And I was like, I got back on those green smoothies really damn fast. I was like, oh yeah, we're not going backwards. Time to drink the green smoothies. And it's like,
Well,
okay, this is what I'm doing.
people think you're supposed to have this trajectory that just goes straight up. But what happens is you feel good and then your body says, oh shit. And then it goes back into dysregulation and then you feel good again and you say, oh shit. And then you go back to dysregulation. The key is noticing how you feel and choosing to do things that make you feel good. You're going to feel dysregulated. There are going to be sunspots, the moon's going to move, somebody down the street's going to follow you too close, whatever. Something's going to happen and you'll get dysregulated. The key is noticing it and bringing yourself back to the light. It's like light and
Right,
dark. If you're in the
right.
dark, bring yourself back to the
So
light
true.
over and over and
So
over
true.
until it becomes your new way of living. You
Yep,
live in the light.
exactly.
You just
Right.
choose to.
It's beautiful. Well, Rita, thanks again. How do people get a hold of you? And
Rita
you got to
Hickman,
join her meditation challenge, everybody. Get going on it.
the challenge is, and I challenged myself. I said, I'm going to, by the end of 5 days, I'm going to do one 15-minute video a day and one exercise a day. And if people do the video and the exercise, by the end of 5 days, they will be bought into doing a daily meditation practice and they'll do it every day.
That's
And
awesome.
so I'm going to leave the videos up for another week, but I did it. I've got one more day of it. I'm like, no, if you just do one exercise a day to get rid of your fears around meditation, to put a ritual in place, to create a space for you to meditate in, if you do that, you will love it so much. You will find so many results. You're like, I get to meditate by listening to music? Yes. I
Yeah,
get to
one thing I
meditate?
will say,
Yeah.
Rita, you bring the fun into these practices. That's what I love because a lot of people feel like it's like, oh, you got to be serious and you got to do that. No, there's not 1 ounce of you that's serious when it comes to like healing. Meaning, like, I mean that in great because you raise the elevation by adding this fun component that it doesn't have to be drudgery. It doesn't have to be like, man, I'm beating the shit out of myself again. No, you add this fun element. And that's why I know I resonated with you. And so you guys go check her out because I'm telling you, if you're in relationships that you need to shift, I'm the financial chick. She's the relationship chick, hands down. So have some fun with that. And, as usual, awakenmywealthbook.com. Go there, get a free book. You just have to pay for your own shipping. And we are here to help you to create a life that you absolutely love. And
Oh
we are
yeah. And
here every
if
week.
people can get their money together and they can get their relationships together,
Whoop,
oh my God,
whoop.
we can create a great world. Get your
Exactly.
stuff together already, people.
Exactly. And please help our communities at large. Please share this on your social media because that's the way we get these tools out to people to help people through this time period we're all living through. And hit that subscribe, like, and notification bell because we're going to get you to a life that you absolutely love.
Oh yeah, we're not going to let you fail. We're not going to let you give up on yourself. We're here to make life as much fun and enjoyable and pleasurable as possible. And believe it or not, The Dalai Lama spends most of his life in a state of bliss, and so can you.
Absolutely. Absolutely. Thanks, everybody. Thanks, Rita.
Thanks.
Bye.
Bye.